Hello folks, my name is Roger Bain and I run Bain Custom Woodworking. We build cabinets, custom tables, and we do a lot of work with live edge wood, and that's what these two guys are here. What I want to show you today is what we do to finish any of our projects. Whether the project is stained, whether it's a hardwood or a softwood, or if the project is left no stain and natural, which is what these two pieces are here today. We make our own wiping polyurethane. I want to show you what that mix is and how we do that, but I want to show you what they're going to look like when we're done. This is a piece of black walnut that we have. It's a live edge slab. It's sanded to 300 grit sandpaper, and as you notice, it's got a couple of bow ties in it. We're going to finish this with polyurethane, and it's going to look like this. This looked identical to this a while back. This has 6 coats of our handmade wiping polyurethane. Now I use a satin because that's what I like, but you can use any gloss, semi-gloss satin that you want. All right, so we're back. So here are the materials I use, and let me get the materials that are needed. Right, I'll be right back. I use mineral spirits because I like it, because it doesn't smell a lot. You can certainly use paint thinner if you want. I prefer mineral spirits. Polyurethane, again, I use Minwax because it's available to me at the local store, and I also use satin. I like the finish the satin gives. I'm not a fan of high gloss, although I've done the same mix with high gloss and it comes out just as well. I use a measuring cup, and the measuring cup depends on the size of the product. So this project is really small, so I'm going to use a small measuring cup. I don't need a huge one for that. I have a container that I use because I want to be able to put a top on it, and I'll show you why that in a second. I use a rag. I never put my finish on with anything but a good cotton rag, and then obviously rubber gloves. So let me show you what I do. So here's what we have. We normally put 5 to 6 coats. If I'm working on a tabletop, I'm always going to put 6 coats on. The first 2 coats are always going to be 2 parts mineral spirits, 1 part polyurethane. The reason for that is because the mineral spirits works as a leveler, allows me to start saturating the wood with the polyurethane. This evaporates, this stays on, and because I'm using a rag, it wipes right on without any brush marks or any streaks. I will use steel wool between each coat. I won't go heavy with the steel wool, but I will use it. Then what we'll do is, after first 2 coats, then we'll remix this. We'll remix it with 2 parts polyurethane, 1 part mineral spirits. Mineral spirits still work as a leveler, but now we start getting a thicker coat of polyurethane. It's still wipeable because of the mineral spirits, and it allows us to put on thin coats so they dry fast. So when we get to that part, we'll explain that as well. But let's get started. Let's mix our first batch. So we're back. We're adding a little extra light because it looked like the camera was having some problems. So here's what we're going to do. I'll put on my rubber gloves. I've already mixed the polyurethane and stirred it up, so it's there. And honestly, I think this measuring cup that I brought out is a little big. I don't need that much because this is a fairly small table, and you'll find that you don't need a lot of this. So let's do this. Let's trade this in. I'll be right back. Trade this in for a smaller one because I don't need much. So here's what I'm going to do. I'm going to dip into my polyurethane, and I'm going to get a full cup of that, a full measuring cup. And I think this is a 1/3 cup. Not a lot. And then what I will do, because I always mix my mineral spirits last because it cleans up my cup. 2 parts. I've spilled a little bit. I really don't care. It's not a big deal, and I'll show you why. Wipe out our cup. And they will get gunked up, so keep them clean as much as you can and set that aside. So we're going to set our mineral spirits aside. We're going to set our steel wool aside. We don't need that yet. Stir this up a little bit, just kind of give it a good mix so it's in there. No big deal. I'm going to set that in our mineral spirits aside, or our polyurethane aside as well. So what are we stuck with? We are stuck with our board, our rag, and our mix. I also have stanchions, And I have stanchions because we're going to do the bottom first, which is here. And then we're going to flip it over and we're going to do the top. So I'm going to turn it this way. So hold on a second. I apologize for that. Just because it's easier for me to work with. There's our tabletop. Here's our rag. And we are literally wiping this thing on. Nice when you have to get into cracks and crevices. So in live edge especially, you don't always have evenness. And honestly, if you're going to do tables and you do legs, so you've stained that leg and it's a round thing, how hard is it to brush that table leg? That is a pain in the neck. I'm just wiping this on. It's working as a leveler. Get right into the cracks and crevices of these live edge pieces. This top, the bottom of this is done. All right, so let's flip it over. This is the real top. All right. So again, we're just going to wipe that poly right on it. So here's the benefit of having a rag. I can clean up anything that it runs over the side. But let's say I'm working and I get talking to somebody. I always have people coming in the shop, whether it be my wife or my grandchildren. And I'll get talking to them and I'll be not paying attention. I'll miss a spot in the middle. With a brush, I have to come all the way from here and go all the way to the end. With this, I don't have to. Why? Because I'm not leaving any brush marks. What I will normally do when I'm done is I'll just wipe over the top of it with this. And I am done. Put the rag in the container. I'm going to seal that container up tight. I'm going to come back. Normally, this is 6 hours. If it takes 6 hours to dry, it's a long time. The problem is we're having storms right now, so the humidity is going to change a little bit. I'll come back tomorrow morning and I'll put another coat of this mix on. So tomorrow morning I'll put a coat on. We'll let that dry. Once that's dry, then tomorrow night we'll come in and we'll remix the next piece and we'll coat it with the new mix. So for now, we're going to sign off. This tabletop is just going to dry on its own. It's nice and even. We'll continue tomorrow as we work on the next coat. All right? Have a great day. Keep making sawdust. All right, folks, so we are back. It's been 24 hours since we were here last together. I've got 2 coats of that thinner mix on this top. So we're going to go ahead and mix the other coats and we're going to put them on. So what I've done is I've lightly steel wooled this with the steel wool I have here, which is a grade 0000. Brushed it off so it's ready to be coated. So let's mix the mix that we had. Now remember, the first mix that we used was 1 part polyurethane, 2 parts paint thinner, or I'm sorry, in my instance, mineral spirits, because I like the mineral spirits because of the smell. We're going to reverse that. We're going to go with 2 parts polyurethane this time, 1 part mineral spirits. We'll still have the leveling action. We'll still allow us to wipe it on, but we're going to get a thicker coat. But understand and remember, we're putting on thin coats with a rag, which means it dries faster, and we don't get all of the air bubbles, and we certainly don't get the bubbles and the streaks inside of it. And tomorrow morning, we'll be able to put on actually the 4th coat. So this is coat number 3. And I actually came out last night about 4 hours after we coated this, and it was really ready at that point. But because it was raining here, the humidity was a little bit higher, I decided to wait till this morning to go ahead and put that on. So I put the 2nd coat on this morning, right around 7 o'clock, and here it is now 4 o'clock in the afternoon. Plenty dry, plenty ready to work with. So let's mix this and let's get it put on. All right, so here we go. We're going to go 2 parts satin polyurethane, and again, you can use semi-gloss or gloss if you prefer. I've used them both in the past. I prefer the finish of satin. 1 part mineral spirits here. Now here's the catch with this one. Because we're adding so much polyurethane to this mix, we really want to stir this up better. We want to make sure that it's got a good polyurethane look to it, because the mineral spirits will tend to separate, and now that we have more polyurethane, we want to mix this a little better than we did our first. And you may find that you have to do this between coats, but this mixture right here is going to be enough to put on coats 3, 4, and 5. And because this is a tabletop, there's enough on here to do coat number 6. Because for my tables, I always put 6 coats on. So let's get our mixes and our supplies out of the way. And let's go ahead and do this. Again, at this point, this is the bottom of the table, so we're doing this first. And we're wiping it on. And it's hard to see from the video, but this is a thicker batch. And you can tell by putting it on when you do that. But again, look at this live edge. So much easier to get into this live edge with a rag than it is with a brush. And there's some items in the live edge that are deeper. I don't have to worry about bubbles in this. I just rub it on. So I was working on another slab this morning that I have going on my other bench, and it's cedar, and I'll show you that when it's all done so you can compare the two, because I use the same batch. But one thing that I found is I was going along and I got sidetracked, and I actually was putting my mix down, and I happened to step to the side and I could see down where the light was, and I missed something right in the middle. Just as easy to come right over the top of it. So let's get this side here done. So this is done. So now I'll drop that in there, and let's carefully flip this. Now it's a thicker polyurethane, so it's wetter. So it's a little, I want to be more careful when I do flip it over. But yeah, and I know I just set it down on its edge that I polyurethane. That's okay. And I'm actually sticking my fingers on this end. I'm going to show you what we're going to do with that. So I've got it flipped over. This is the top that we're working on, or what I consider the top. Now I may be told different when I get to go put the legs on. So remember where I set it down on the table? Let's just wipe over the top of that. Remember where I hit it with my fingers because I was flipping it? Let's just wipe underneath. Not a big deal. I don't have to worry about the brushes. So now let's put a good coat here. Again, I don't care if you use circle motions. I don't care what motions you use to put it on. I'm literally squeezing my rag out so I'm not getting a lot on. And yes, I agree, I'm putting on more coats than you would normally put if you put it on thick. If I put it on with a brush, and I don't thin it out, I'm probably putting 2 coats, maybe 3, depending on how you prefer. But you know what? This is going to dry faster. I am done. I can walk away. Tomorrow morning we'll come back and I'll put on coat number 4. And then what we'll do tomorrow night is we'll put coat number 5 on, probably together. And then when we're all done, and again I've sealed this so that I can reuse this, and I'm going to use this tomorrow. So I'll use that again for coat number 4, 5, and 6. I have changed my rag, so I've gone from the rag I was using for the first 2 coats, going to a new rag for these, only because I want to, if there was any dirt or any residue picked up in those first 2 coats, I want them to be gone. So this is done. We're going to come back tomorrow. We're going to apply coat 5. Probably we'll work through and apply coat 6 as well together. And then what I want to do is I'm going to recap the mixes again for you at the end. And then I'm actually going to take some still shots of some of the other items that I've built in my home. So I've done this for customers and for my own personal projects. And some of the items you'll see have been around for a long time, and they're still holding up very, very well. And when I say a long time, I've got some items that are over 10 years old, and we're using them as tables. And the quality of finish is still as good today as it was the day when I was done. So Let's let this dry. I'm going to go off and do some other things. Tomorrow we'll get back together again and we'll look at coats 5 and 6 at that point. All right? Have a great day, folks. Okay, folks, here we are. We're back to get our last coat put on this table and show you what these tables look like when we're all done. But what we're going to do first is I want to review the process that I use and the materials that I use. Again, this is a wiping polyurethane that was introduced to me a good 25 years ago by an old cabinet maker who saw a table that I had worked on and said, I can show you a better way to do this. And it has really worked out well, not only for tables, but think of table legs that you've made that are round, that are really hard to brush and you're hard to keep away from those drips and those runs. Putting an item on with a rag is so much easier when you're working with a round product. But for a flat table, I can do a flat table very quickly a couple times a day as opposed to putting it on with a brush. So let's review what we did, and then we'll take this tabletop in, we'll get it put on its legs, and we'll stand it up next to two other tables that I have used the same process on in just the past couple of weeks. And I'll actually show you a cabinet that we've used this process on and show you that the finishes stand up and hold up very well. So let's review again. I use mineral spirits, and I do that because of the smell. I'd rather use this than paint thinner, but you can use paint thinner as well as you like. But I like mineral spirits because you don't have a large odor with that. And remember, this is the leveling agent. Then I use satin polyurethane. I like satin because I don't like a high gloss. However, that said, I've used this with semi-gloss and gloss. Process works just as well on either one, and they both come out with really nice finishes. It depends on the customer. Most of my customers allow me to put the finish on, so I put satin. I have had customers ask for high gloss, and I've put high gloss on. Same process works just as well. I use a good cotton rag from a t-shirt or whatever, something that's good quality. And I'll use two different ones. One for the first mix, I'll throw that away, and I'll use a second one for the second mix. So we'll get into the mix in a moment. I do steel wool between each coat, but not heavily. And you'll find when you put it on with a rag, you don't have to put a heavy coat on. It's a light coat, so you don't get the bubbles and you don't get the issues that you have with a paintbrush. I use a mixing cup. I use metal because it's easier to clean up, however you want to use it, and it doesn't matter. What matters is the size of the mixing cup. So if this is an 8-foot table, I'm going to use a 1-cup measuring cup because it's going to take more of my mix to spread across the table. For this one, this is fine. This smaller cup is going to work great and I can get it done. I use a container with a lid on it, and I do that because for the first 2 coats, I use the same mix. So I close it up tightly between coats. So while it's drying for that 6 hours, nothing's happening to this. And what I'll do is I'll empty this out, I'll clean this out, I'll throw the rag away, I'll mix my second mix, and I use that for coats 3 to 5 on pretty much everything I do. For tabletops, I use that for coats 3 to 6. But I can seal it, and I don't have a problem with it. In the end, there are other containers that I throw away. This one I'll clean up and I'll keep. So that's what I do. Those are what I use. Remember, I'm putting on light coats, so I'm not putting on thick coats. Yes, it takes me more coats to get my finish done, but I can do 2 coats in a day without any issues whatsoever. Honestly, I put the 3rd coat on this, and I came back 4 hours later, and it was really ready to put the 4th coat on, but I waited a few more hours because of the weather conditions. So it's more humid. It might take a little longer to dry, but it's going to dry faster than you would putting a good thick coat on. And another thing to keep in mind is we're working on this. If I miss a spot in the middle of the table here, I don't have to start at the end and come all the way across as I would with a brush. I can just come right across it like this, and I'm done. I set my rag aside. So that's the mix. These are the materials I'm using. I'm going to go ahead and get this done. We will regroup in another venue. I'm actually going to take this table top into the house, put legs on it. I have 2 other tables already on display in there. I want you to see the consistency of each different table. I've got another black walnut. I have a cedar. I want you to see the consistency of the tables and how well that finish goes on each and every one, every single time. But I also have a cabinet in there that you can see the finish on that as well. And I use this finish on everything that I work on that's going to be inside. All right, so that note, let me cut off here. I'll get this done. We'll let it dry. We'll take it inside, get some legs onto it, and we'll finish this up. All right, have a great day. Okay, folks, here we are. We've changed our venue. We've gone from the shop into the living room. And the reason I've done this is I not only want you to see the table that we just finished and put those 6 coats on, but the other 2 tables that we've also finished this week and put the same amount of coats on with the same wiping polyurethane that we were using. So this is a live edge cedar. We have 6 coats on this. This is a live edge black walnut with 6 coats. And this is a live edge black walnut with 6 coats. So obviously we haven't put any stain on these. We've just put polyurethane on. But the coat's consistent. And within 72 hours to 30 days, these will harden up and be just as hard as if you put them on with a brush. But the difference is, with the rag, there's no brush marks, there's no streaks, and there's no spillage. But let me show you a couple of other items. So this is an English chestnut oak cabinet that we built about 8 years ago. Same finish, wiping polyurethane on it. It's held up very well. We've used it in a number of places in our home. Now it's a TV stand. This fireplace surround and mantle is alder wood. There is no stain on here. We use the same finish on this. And I expect this finish to outlast us living in this home. So as you can see, the point of wiping polyurethane, it's easier to put on, it's more consistent, and honestly it's faster. But mixing my own, it's also less expensive. I control the mix, and I control everything that goes on with the finish. So I hope this has been helpful to someone. Please visit our website at bancustomwoodworking.com. We'll put the link at the bottom of this. If you sign up for our mail list, you will get the PDF for this mix as a download. Please visit our Instagram, our Facebook, and our Pinterest site to see our other items that we're putting up, the projects we're working on, and the different items that we put this finish on, from kids' toys to cabinets to tabletops. We'll also, at the end of this video, we'll take some individual shots of some of the other furniture we've built, the cabinets, the tables, the dressers, and we'll put those up so you can see those slide by at the end of this video. In the meantime, thank you for listening. Keep making sawdust and enjoy your day. Thank you.